So, Ms. Vetten, all I'm saying to you is that because you did not interview her, don't you agree with me that the possibility that your interpretation and analysis of her intention could be wrong?
One can't rule that out.
In fact, you do explain, and I think it's an important, and it's covered in many of your papers, which are good. You do explain that when people face at workplace these particular situations of hierarchies and someone powerful, and they can get confused about what they do or what they say, right? But let me ask you a rather personal question. You work at VETS, don't you?
I'm a research associate, I'm not an employee.
Yes. But knowing you, wherever you've worked, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, knowing you would tell a person who makes advances towards you where to get off, wouldn't you? Who's in authority? You would.
I would do my best, but I must say when I was younger, there were times where I was quite taken aback and didn't always know how to respond.
It's fine. I'm saying now you would. I'm putting it to you that I think knowing you, if any person made advances at you, you would tell them off.
I would.
Right. You've got to explain a little bit for me. Would you do that because you are older, because you have better moral rectitude, because you have a better courage of your conviction than the complainant? You seem to suggest that she wouldn't, she doesn't mean what she says. Is there any reason why you believe, either because of age, race, or status, that she is not like you? She wouldn't speak her mind.
As a general principle, I don't go around assuming that other people are exactly like me.
Perfect.
That is a mistake.
It's fine. But I'm saying, why would you assume this one you did not interview? It doesn't have to be like you. You're not the only one with a better moral rectitude. I'm saying, why don't you assume that she has the courage of her convictions?
My evidence is that at times she certainly does have that. She tells him no a couple of times. So she certainly does have that. What my evidence says is that her response is at times ambiguous. Sometimes she's able to say particular things, at other times she isn't. That is consistent with some of the experience I've had with other complainants. I don't try to read myself into the situation.
No, I agree.
Or assume that what I should do is what everybody else should do.
Yeah, all I'm saying too is that you cannot dispute the fact that actually she is just like you. She may just be like you, strong moral rectitude, courage of her convictions, and is not scared actually of authority. Would you be surprised if you found that out?
I wouldn't be. I mean, I think it takes enormous courage to actually come here.
Yes.
And so that is to be admired. And sometimes people might not have that initially. It may come to them precisely through difficult situations.
I fully agree with you. So it may not be entirely accurate that she's this childlike person who cannot speak her mind.
I think when I use the term childlike, it's not necessarily about speaking with mind. It's about position.
It's fine.
Respect. Who do you defer to? Who do you respect? What is the appropriate way in which you approach somebody? It's not necessarily lacking courage. It's just that I think as we go through life, we learn that you don't use F words to your CEO. That would not be considered appropriate. So it's more like if we fulfill or live or occupy certain roles in life, that's often how we are supposed to engage with each other. And I'll give an example now. Your role is that of the defense attorney. Mine is that of a witness. And so you expect me to answer in particular ways in terms of that role as Advocate Budlander fulfills her role. So there are ways in which we can and can't respond to each other. When you say to me, I mustn't be sarcastic, you're telling me I'm not fulfilling the role of witness. That's my point, is that there are roles which kind of shape how that we are expected to behave.
You put me in my place there. Right. So all I'm saying to you is that you will agree with me that without having spoken to her, knowing her intentions, the tribunal must take the things you say about her, not as wrong, but as generalizations. They are not specific to her. You don't know her intentions when she said something.
What I'm offering the tribunal, and again, as I said, it's for them to take it or leave it, is what I read from this, how it can be interpreted. I'm not offering holy writ here. I'm saying this is how it can be interpreted on the basis of my experience with other complainants.
And that we did establish with you yesterday that because you did not look at her cross-examination, where her assumptions, her statements were tested, and where she made certain concessions. You have no access to the concessions she made.
I did look at them yesterday.
And we'll get there. I'm talking about when you provided us with your report. I knew you were going to say you had a look last night. All I'm saying to you is that when you provided this report and you gave evidence, not when I reminded you that you didn't look at it, when you gave this report and gave your evidence in chief, you had not had a look at her concessions and how and when her testimony was tested.
Actually, I stated up front that I hadn't gone through the cross-examination in great detail.
Yes.
So, Mr. Sikhakhane, I think I'm going to go back to something which is important here. To the previous question you asked. Mr. Sikhakhane said that to the following fact: because you had not interviewed her as a person, the tribunal should then look at what you said as generalized opinion, because you never interviewed her, you can't zoom onto her. Well, what you said were general remarks in general terms and not specific to her. I think that is the essence of the question.
My comments are based on what I read here and how I understand or see what she is saying. From what I'd also looked at in terms of the her evidence in chief as well. That is how it was understood, and what was done was, what I was trying to do was contextualize her evidence as well in terms of what I am familiar with in terms of other complainants. Hence the broader explanatory framework of this is how sexual harassment is understood, this is how complainants can be understood, and then in light of that general contextual background, this is how one can read what she is saying or not saying here, and how she is responding.
I interrupted you, Mr. Sikhakhane. So,
well, I'll go back there. But the point I was making is not that you're wrong, and all we're saying is that those are generalizations, not incorrect ones. They are generalizations about cases of sexual harassment. But of course, if we must make a choice between your generalizations and her words and what she says, both in those communications and even here at the tribunal, we've got to accept that yours are generalizations, may or may not apply to her.
She is ultimately the authority on her experience, and her what she says is what must ultimately be what you take. This is a way to try and understand what she's saying.
And I'm saying this because you must be aware, as sympathetic as we should be, but you must be aware this is a 42-year-old woman, right? Whose words must be respected. Don't you agree?
Like any other woman's.
Yeah. Whose intelligence must be respected.
Correct.
This is someone who knows what she says and thinks what she says. You agree with me?
Correct.
And there is no reason it would be patronizing for all of us in the room, including you, to assume that she is a child whose actions and words must be interpreted by some either superior male or superior other woman. We must believe what she says. Don't you agree with me?
No, because I think you're misinterpreting what I mean when I say childlike. And I repeat again that I'm talking about a position in relation to the judge. I'm not talking about somebody who's actually a child, should be thought of as a child. It's more like positions of authority.
Yes, no.
It's not about people's mental capacity. It's not about their abilities. It's about the degree of respectful deference you are expected to show somebody when you are positioned in a particular role. It's not that that person is a child and you treat them as a child.
If you found out, and I'm not going to make it specific, if you found out that a complainant, not the complainant, a complainant has a history of belligerence towards a senior person, would you still hold the same view?
It would depend. You'd want to know about that history. You'd want to know how it unfolded. You would have to take a whole lot of factors into account.
What would you take into effect? If you say someone fears authority, and I demonstrate to you that that complainant actually does not fear authority by action, does not, would it change how you look at them? Would it change how your generalized opinion that they fear authority? Maybe that's why they don't say certain things.
It would depend on the circumstances. So, if it's in a workplace setting and you are contesting over workplace issues, that's one thing. It's a different thing if you are contesting, where you have guidance around grievance and other kinds of procedures. And I mean, a situation, let's use the courtroom situation, where that person may or may not be your line manager, you can contest with them. Somebody who has a higher authority than, say, your immediate line manager, for whom you might have greater respect, that may be different. I mean, the way you respond to people can also depend on the degree of respect you have for them and the degree of liking you may have for someone. You can be it's possible that you can look at people as being complex. You can both admire them and dislike what they do. And that feeling perhaps of admiration or respect can come into conflict with the feelings of anger.
I'm going to repeat this question because I see what you're doing. I'm saying to you, when you make an assumption that someone fears authority and therefore that's why you should not believe them when they say yes, you not believe them when they say this. When I give you an example that a particular complainant has exhibited a propensity different from your assumption, which is actually does not fear authority, would it impact on your assumptions about them specifically? I know your generalized view, but I'm saying, would it not affect your analysis?
I would certainly want to look at it.
Would it impact your analysis at all?
It would depend on on the information.
If the information is that actually this person, this complainant has actually even physically confronted a line manager, a supervisor, what would you do? Would you still interpret them as, I'm giving you a practical example.
I would want to know more about the circumstances because what it might indicate is somebody who has difficulty with conflict and conflict resolution, somebody who veers between, you can have somebody who is very aggressive under some circumstances, you have people who are passive aggressive, people can shift between different things. So I would want to have a look at those details to see how do they add up.
Right, I'll leave this question. I think I'm not going to get the answer you don't like.